That's the whole purpose of pranayama, yoga asanas. It's to prepare the body to then sit in meditation and allow individual mind, yoga, union, to experience union with cosmic.
Hi, my name is Yana. Thank you for watching. This episode starts with an audio introduction and continues with the video content. So remember to watch it until the end. And subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, share with friends. Thank you for being here and listening to Timeless Teachings. Welcome to the world of consciousness, human development, and full potential. Here we have conversations with people from all over the world about the subjects that matter for our mind, body, and soul, so that you can create a truly spectacular life. Inhale, exhale, and let's begin. This is Timeless Teachings, a global podcast with yanafry. We are not against men. We are pro-women, at least today, controversial and little. In this episode, we look at the path to self-realization through the eyes of a woman. Our guest is Candace Badgett, a meditation practitioner with more than 30 years of experience, an international speaker who specializes in the higher states of consciousness, women's health, and women's path to spiritual fulfillment. Candace is a teacher and a mentor to thousands and thousands of women worldwide. Let's welcome Candace. Candace, it is very amazing to welcome you at Timeless Teachings Podcast. I'm so excited that you're here.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to be here with you, and just meeting you in Fairfield, Iowa is just absolutely so delightful. And I'm very happy to be reconnected with you again.
Exactly. And given that we just met, and this is thanks to Jim Bagnola, who is also one of the guests on the Timeless Teachings podcast, who introduced us. And we just had all those conversations. And that's the reason why I wanted for you to come here today, just to share with people who are listening to us and watching to us about all those amazing experiences that you have in your life. And usually what we do, we start a little bit with the personal story. So who is Candace? Just a little bit about your life, where it started, and then what happened.
You know, I grew up in those fascinating late 60s, early 70s times when, you know, the young people in the United States were, well, really all over the world, were really looking to alternative ways of living, that somehow the situation in the US, while it was so comfortable and so much affluence, there was something missing, some dimension, some spiritual component that I think all the young people just recognized. And so we began to probe and really look deeply into from spiritual to philosophical traditions. And in that time when I was at university, I came across the teachings of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and transcendental meditation. And so I just went ahead and learned that meditation. And that was it. That created the trajectory of my life from there on out. So over time, I became a teacher of transcendental meditation. I heard, when I learned transcendental meditation, I heard about this university that the Transcendental Meditation Organization was launching, and they had just purchased a campus that the campus had gone bankrupt. It had somehow become a party school, or I don't know what they lost their accreditation, and the campus came up for sale. And it came up for sale in Iowa, Fairfield, Iowa, someplace never in a million years did I think I would go and live. I was living in New York City. I couldn't imagine. But when they described what the curriculum was about and how different this university was, and I had been in university for 2 years, and I knew I wasn't getting to what I wanted. And what I discovered is that this university, everybody meditated, but it was a regular university with all the regular subjects, and it was accredited, but it was interdisciplinary, which means that what they do is they identify the underlying universal principles of intelligence that structure every discipline. They're at the heart of every discipline. And so it's not a fragmented kind of education. You're seeing those laws of nature that are at play in every discipline. But even more importantly, you understand that it's those same universal laws of nature that are structuring your own ability to perceive order in nature. They're structuring your own growth and your own evolution. And those principles are connecting you to everything and everyone. There was a wholeness to this approach to education that when I heard about it, I was so excited. This is it. This is what's been missing. This is what I've been looking for. So really, that was when my whole life took its own course. It's when I left New York City and I stepped into the cornfields of Iowa, a state in the United States that has more pigs than people in it. But I stepped into this magical world of Maharishi International University, where everything I wanted to know and understand about my connection to everything else in the universe, the intelligence that guides this universe, how I can open my individual awareness to that field of intelligence, and the incredible potential of the human mind and human consciousness and the glory of life on earth. It was just, okay, I'm a happy camper, and I know what I'm doing with my life. And so that was it. That was the beginning. I just became more involved. I became a TM teacher at that point after I graduated from the university. And, then it took on its own life. I met my husband in the context of the TM organization. We ended up building the first Ayurvedic clinic in North America.
Which I just did. Exactly. Also, everything what you were describing, I mean, I can say I have just spent 3 weeks with you guys. So I have seen it all with my own eyes and had the direct experience, exactly what you're saying, with people, students meditating, and in general, just meditators, community, and all the practitioners kind of living in the proximity and empowering each other. Have been to your beautiful Ayurveda clinic, which famously has been having visits and still has with many famous people all over the world, right? I know you even have this little place to land the private planes that people are flying in, maybe have been before the COVID started. And in general, it's just it's really a phenomenal place to be. And with the education part, what you have been just describing, the way how the education is done at the university. But I also learned the way how you guys do that is that it's one discipline at a time. It's one subject at a time, right? Usually at the universities, students are bombarded with several subjects at the same time, and then all exams in the same week, which for the consciousness and for the mind, I mean, I always wondered why our education system is structured exactly this way. So you actually do this in a more natural way. So one subject goes for several weeks in a very intense way, and then they do exam or test, and then the next subject. So it's more like a full immersion program, right?
Absolutely right. And the other very unique component, of course, is the transcendental meditation program.
Yes, talk about that. Exactly. Is transcendental meditation.
And that's the core of the whole experience, because transcendental meditation, it's a very unique kind of meditation. It's a very authentic meditation. And everything that we teach at the university, everything about transcendental meditation, it all has its roots in the Vedic tradition. And the Vedic tradition is the tradition of knowledge from India. And it is a tradition of knowledge out of which all the spiritual religions evolved. Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Taoism, they all have their roots in the Vedic tradition of knowledge. And that's where you find in those texts, amazing texts, when you think about it, 6,000 years old, a tradition that was written down 6,000 years ago. And of course, Sanskrit is the language of that tradition. And all languages trace their roots back to Sanskrit. So, and culture and language are very intimately connected. So you can say really that all cultures trace their roots back to the Vedic tradition. And that's where you'll find these incredible universal principles that are at the heart of every spiritual tradition. And there, of course, you find the techniques for unfolding enlightenment, for unfolding human potential. The techniques are there. And that's where in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 45, you find very specifically the description of authentic meditation. Now, when I say authentic, I'm talking about the fact that what we want out of meditation is we want the individual mind to settle down, become more quiet, and literally transcend or go beyond the thinking process altogether and allow individual mind to open to cosmic mind, universal mind, for individual mind to open to that intelligence that governs the entire universe. Because that field of life is our true self. It's our self with a big capital S. And our self with a small s is all our thoughts and all our feelings and our personality and the things we do in life and all our biases and all our prejudices and all, as said, all our likes and our dislikes, all of our thoughts and feelings. That constitutes our individual self. So if we can allow the mind to take its own natural course to these subtler, more powerful levels of our own mind, our mind will naturally transcend the thinking process altogether. And that experience is an experience of being aware of awareness itself. So you see, there's nothing specific. There's no specific thought. There's no specific feeling other than a feeling of having come home, a feeling of fullness and expansion, because there are no boundaries in that reality where you are simply aware of awareness itself. Now, I don't want to get too into detail, but I want to say one more thing, and then you can ask a question we can go in many different directions here. But what's so interesting, if we think about it, our mind is always moving within the confines of a thought until our thinking becomes kind of vague and abstract enough and we fall asleep. But it's always moving within the confines of a thought. And it doesn't matter if the thought is about what we're going to cook for dinner, or the thought is about God, or the thought is about the size of the universe. Our mind is still moving within the confines of that thought. But when we transcend the thinking process altogether and we experience being aware of awareness itself, there is no confining channel through which the mind is moving, and the mind experiences freedom for the first time. Freedom, absolute, unbounded freedom, and a kind of wholeness and fullness that you realize this is what you've been looking for everywhere. Every desire you have is for this kind of self-sufficient, abiding inner happiness. So that's what transcendental meditation is all about, just allowing us to get out of our way, allow the mind to take a natural direction to the source of thought, to our own unbounded, true, universal identity. And the beautiful thing is that universal identity, our self with a big S, is the same self for everyone. That is where we truly are one. That is where we are unified in our shared humanity. It can only be on that level. Otherwise, we're all different. We all have our specific views and considerations and everything else. But on that level, we are in that value of pure human nature, pure unified humanity. So it's a very beautiful experience. And over time, it becomes more and more stabilized so that it's not just that inner experience and meditation, but it's something that we integrate into our everyday life, that we maintain that unbounded perspective, even when we're active in the world and doing our business. We remain identified with that field of pure intelligence, pure consciousness, pure universal love, pure fullness, our true reality. Everybody gets to come home to who they are.
This is so beautiful and true. And I'm getting like the goosebumps just listening to you. And I just love listening to you talking. You're so amazing at it with such a incredibly crystallized energy. And I can see everything that you share just in your eyes also, that it's transmitted. Because you yourself have been meditating just for so many years, right? For how many years actually?
I think it's 45 or 46 now.
Many. Yes, many, and on a regular basis, right? So you have been also experiencing the direct effects, and that's what I also love so much about the community, your community, and everyone who is doing this work and staying in the Maharishi Vedic city, that you have been doing it for time long enough to prove that it is working.
And you, Yana, you have been doing it long enough to prove that it's working, because this is what the incredible thing is about this technique. You feel the results right away. You settle down, you transcend right away. It's not something where this is a discipline you must practice for many years before you even have that kind of insight into that beautiful inner reality of transcendental consciousness. So you know it.
Exactly, because I was lucky one to receive a gift of being taught transcendental meditation when I was, at the Iowa with you guys. And but I also learned that there are different states of consciousness, specifically when we talk about a transcendental state, right? So usually people know about the awake state, when we awake and we go about our things during the day. And then there is a sleeping state, then there is a dreaming state. And so actually transcendental is the fourth state. It's a different state of consciousness. That's what, for people, I guess, who are a little bit more logically minded and scientifically minded. So I know there are just so many reviews. In fact, what was more than 420 peer reviews on transcendental meditation done over the years that actually proves and explains exactly why it works, how it works, and how it benefits not only the mind and the expansion of consciousness, but also as a result, all other areas of our lives. Am I correct with this?
Absolutely right. And it's because we're allowing the mind to fathom its full range and to touch on the source of intelligence and creativity that's going to now be infused when we come out of meditation into our daily life, and it will impact every aspect of our life. And the main thing is because of the changes that happen in the brain, because a coherent brain is the basis of everything that's good. Good health, good intelligence, good creativity. Everything that's good is based on a coherent or an orderly functioning brain. And what they find, and the other thing about the research with transcendental meditation is that it is hard, most of it is hard measures. And when we say hard measures, we mean measuring the drop in metabolic rate, measuring the coherence between the left and right hemisphere of the brain, which is a very significant thing. As opposed to other meditations, when then they'll do a study and they'll say, now, when you come out of this calming meditation, do you feel calmer? And then people write, yes, I think I feel calmer. You see, this is a subjective, soft measure. And transcendental meditation also has soft measures, but the majority of our research is hard measures, like extension in longevity, drop in blood pressure, drop in cortisol, measures of anxiety. So these are hard measures. But the most significance is the brainwave coherence, the wave that frontal lobe, back lobe, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, that the brainwaves all begin to move in synchrony. And this is meaning that it's like the whole brain is lighting up. And when the whole brain lights up, every ability and aspect of our life is improved. So yes, there's the spiritual component, but you can't, we tend to sort of compartmentalize life, the spiritual aspect, and then our work aspect, our success aspect. But the reality is it's one big integrated reality. Everything about us, our life is a spiritual reality. Everything about our life is based on fulfilling desires and being successful. It's all a big integrated process of growth and progress.
Beautiful. It's such a beautiful point that you're bringing up, because it's also exactly what Timeless Teachings podcast is about. And it's exactly what we are trying to explain to people and to teach, to bring all that mystical and spiritual into daily life in a coherent way, right? So that we understand there is no separation. And I can tell you a story. It's even funny. Even when I was in Iowa at the Maharishi Vedic Seats, I had a phone call with my father, and he asked me, so what are you going to be doing today? And I told him, well, I'm going to be, learning transcendental meditation. And there was a pause on the phone, and my father goes, well, I thought people who meditate, those like monks and nuns, or, those who just leave everything behind and you have a family. Is your husband okay with that you're going to be meditating? And so I had this conversation with my own father, explaining to him that idea that the word even meditation that people often associate with exclusively spiritual way of living. And that has been in the past. I mean, historically, it is true. Usually, just the way society was created, the meditators were most of the time living outside of the society, and most of them were men. Right? I mean, women came for all kinds of reasons, because we had to look after children and household and elderly parents and all kinds of other things. So in the past, my father even commented on that. What do you mean you're going to be meditating? You are a woman. I'm like, Dad, I mean, this is like last century conversation, seriously. But the truth is, there are still people who perhaps think like that, including my own parents, right? And so the whole idea also as having this conversation here, just to highlight it and to explain and to show that, first of all, meditation is scientifically proven, and it improves all other areas of lives. And it is for pretty much everyone who just wants to become happier, healthier, more balanced, and more fulfilled, and connect with deep inner happiness. And then if this person happens to be what we call a spiritual seeker, and maybe wants to go all the way, right, into what we call enlightenment, liberation, or whatever words we're using for this, then that's one way of living. And what we also have been seeing, and I think in your community, you are a living proof of that. Even people who want to go all the way into spirituality, they don't have to exit society. They can still stay in the society. They can still stay in the family. They can still be productive in daily activities while doing their practices. And at the same time, there are many people, and probably statistically right now, many more people who just want to have a happy, balanced life. They don't care that much whether they're going to have this is last reincarnation or not, right? So they just want to be happy and healthy. And it's beautiful also of itself. I mean, it's an absolutely valid desire to have. And given that the majority of the society still runs the world the way how it is, it's very important that we all meditate. And with that, I just would like you to share a little bit more about what happens when many meditators come together and doing this practice, like meditating at a certain time and in a certain place, physically, for example, right? So what actually then happens to what we call a collective consciousness? And I don't know how much we need to explain to our listeners and people who watch us right now about collective consciousness, because I think, guys, you probably know, you have been with us for a while now. But in my understanding, it's this collective field of information and energy that connects all of us. And I think this is, Candace, what you're referring to, this big S, right? The big self,
absolutely.
all unite in love and peace and compassion. And so when sometimes maybe we hear people saying, oh, we all love, we are all connected. I mean, they are there, they're in that state. And there's some other people who are not. They go, what do you mean? I'm not sure I understand what you're saying here, right? So just let's talk a little bit about that collective effect on the collective and individual consciousness when we come together as meditators.
Yeah, this is probably the most significant aspect of Vedic knowledge. And that is this deep appreciation that, number one, what we refer to as enlightenment, just to use, as you're saying, it's everyone's birthright. It's everyone's potential. And it just requires taking that time to allow the awareness to go inward. And as you're saying, in the past, everyone felt you had to go off to a monastery in order for that to be possible. But it's inherent within the mind. The mind has that ability to fathom its full range and to open to that underlying field, as you're saying, that field of pure love, that field of pure consciousness, that underlying reality that pervades all of life, that gives rise to all of creation. And that is, we can say, the be all and the end all. So, yes, this is the potential of every human being, but there's one step more. And that is, not only can we have enlightened individuals, but we can have an enlightened world. And just
how, Candace? I mean, now it's more than ever. We're living in an enlightened world with everything that is going on.
We need an enlightened world. But the mechanics and the same thing that gets in our way from living our full potential, which is fatigue, stress, pain that makes our heart shrink, heal, wounds, psychological, physical, stress that we've experienced, all of this, whether in this life or past, all of this comes to restrict our ability to unfold everything that we are. It's the same thing on the level of society. Societal stress and tension, ethnic resentment, economic disparity that breeds resentment, all this kind of stress and tension builds up in the atmosphere until it ultimately expresses itself as war. War is the ultimate release of a buildup of stress. So just as we say with transcendental meditation, by allowing the mind to settle down, the whole body settles down. This incredible deep rest is gained where the body throws off stress and abnormalities. It restructures the nervous system, and the mind is rejuvenated by and expanded by its experience of these deeper values of the mind. So in the same way, what's needed, and this is there in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it says, in the vicinity of yoga, hostile tendencies fall away. In the vicinity of yoga, which means union. And what are we talking about when we say union? We're talking the union of individual mind with cosmic mind. That's the whole purpose of pranayama, yoga asanas. It's to prepare the body to then sit in meditation and allow individual mind, yoga, union, to experience union with cosmic mind. Now, when you practice Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, we have the TM City program that's based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So it's an advanced program of the TM program, advanced technique. When you have a large enough group practicing this TM City program, the extent to which that underlying field of coherence and intelligence and progressiveness, that evolutionary force of life is embedded in this field, that gets radiated into the environment. And literally, people stop wanting to retaliate in violent kinds of ways. Because what happens is, we've done such extensive research on this to the point that it was published in the Yale University Journal of Conflict Resolution. I'll get to that. But there are indexes. It's actually called the misery index, where societies note how many car accidents, how many deaths, how many hospital admissions, if there's war in the area, how much escalation of war, how many deaths, how many crimes, how many murders, how many whatever. It's literally called the misery index. So that kind of data, it's horrifying, but that kind of data is kept. So when we could pull together these groups, as many as sometimes 8,000 people together practicing the TM and TM City program, we could then keep track of this index to see if there were the results, the effect was so dramatic as to be almost unbelievable. Now, if you can stay with me a little longer and let me go into a little bit more detail.
Please, because I would love to know the details. So please.
All right. So there's something in research called a P factor, and it indicates the statistical significance of a scientific study. And what it's saying is, what are the chances that whatever the result of this experiment is, like we're doing an experiment to see if an aspirin will get rid of a headache. And we find that all the people in the trial, they got rid of the headache. They took an aspirin, they got rid of the headache. The P factor indicates what's the chance that something else could have caused those people to get rid of their headache. Maybe it was just, they'd had a headache for an hour and now it was time to be over. What's the chance that it was actually the aspirin that got rid of the headache? Now, usually in a scientific experiment, if you have a P factor of 1 in 100, like it's a 1 in 100 chance that maybe something else got rid of the headaches, not the aspirin, that's a very significant P factor, and that is a publishable study. If it's been done in a rigorous way, the scientific journals will accept that study for publication. When we sent a group to Jerusalem in 1983, when the Lebanon civil war was raging, and they meditated in a very big group right there on the border of Lebanon, the drop in war deaths and war escalation was about 67%. It was staggering. And ultimately, this was repeated 7 times with groups in different parts of the world. And when they took all the data from the 7 studies, this is called a meta-analysis. It usually produces a less significant P factor. The P factor, the statistical significance that anything else but the Maharishi effect, that's what we call this, that the Maharishi effect could have caused these societal changes in a positive direction, was 1 in 100 million trillion. That's a decimal point with 19 zeros after it and then a 1. Mm-hmm. In other words, the Maharishi effect that if you have a big enough group, and there's a formula for figuring out that group, that practices the TM and TM City program at the same time, this is the most scientifically proven fact that exists. We have proven that you can turn off war like flipping off a light switch, and that is more proven than the fact, and this is true, that an aspirin can get rid of a headache. It is a more proven fact. But, this premise is so novel. Even when the Yale, most prestigious social science journal there is, the Yale University's Journal of Conflict Resolution, when this was submitted, they didn't know what to do with it. They tried to prove that somehow the methodology wasn't right. They couldn't. They put it through such a rigorous review, and yet it was unassailable. They had to publish it. And but it's a new paradigm. And I'll give you one last example, and then you can ask a question, and I'll stop talking for a second. But back in the turn of the century, from the 1800s to the 1900s, the US Army had to make a decision whether to invest in homing pigeons to send messages or to invest in this newly developed radio technology. And they decided to continue to invest in homing pigeons because they couldn't get their mind around the fact that messages could be sent invisibly through the air. And this is where we are today. You see, at that time, it was a paradigm shift where suddenly scientists understood the electromagnetic field and how to apply it to make electricity and to send and have radio waves and all of this. And now, right now, we are on the cusp of a very important paradigm shift. But it's on the level of the quantum field, and it's on the level of human consciousness. It's on the level of equating the unified field of physical creation with the unified field of human consciousness and realizing they are one and the same unified field. And that from that powerful unified field, which is the home of all the laws of nature, when we align ourselves with that field, then we can co-create with those laws of nature, and we can transform life on earth in a matter of months. And the Maharishi effect is the leading demonstration of this quantum paradigm shift that we're stepping into now. I'm going to say one last thing. Probably the guest who's talked for the longest period of time we've ever had, but one last
Not at all, actually. People love to talk here. So yes, please.
The one last point is when I say this, people get nervous. It's like, but you meditate and you can access these more powerful levels of the mind and you can open your awareness to cosmic intelligence. But what if you're a bad person? And now you can do something on these very powerful levels of creation. But the point is, you can't until you've purified your mind and heart. And that's what meditation is doing. It's getting rid of the stress, the pain, the hurt that makes people resentful and makes them behave in ways that are immoral and unethical. But when you meditate over time, that has to be purified out. You can't touch on this field. It is a field of supreme purity. But this process of transcending day in, day out, 20 minutes twice a day, 20 minutes twice a day, it purifies all these impurities so that by the time you can maintain awareness on these more subtle levels, in alignment, that awareness is in alignment with the evolutionary force of natural law. Your desires are the desires of the intelligence of the universe. You can't desire to do something harmful. So there's no danger in this. As a matter of fact, it's the only safe way for human intelligence to make progress. Otherwise, we have scientists out there in their arrogance. They think they know better than nature, and they start to genetically engineer. It's biochemical warfare. They're taking these laws of nature and they're taking these laws and they're using them in destructive ways. But if they would settle down and they would meditate and connect to this deeper value of their own self, then all this intelligence will be utilized for the progress and the safety and the evolution of themselves and of society. So it's extraordinarily important at this time when, there are a lot of interesting and dangerous things going on in this world. But this comes back to the situation today, the tension in Russia and Ukraine. And none of the citizens want this. Nobody wants this. And yet, again, it's that release of tension, that release of stress on a global level. And what the solution is groups. We have to have these groups. We need 8,000 or 10,000 professional peacekeepers, we can call them. And it'd be great to have them in India and in the United States, on both sides, opposite sides of the globe, radiating this influence. And you will begin to see a change in life on Earth in a matter of weeks and months. And it's a proven fact. It's not a utopian dream.
And I love everything that you are sharing about it, the fact that it is tangible, it is doable, the fact that anyone can contribute and join.
Absolutely.
And also how you shared that when this common fear, which I also heard from other people, what if it is a bad person who learns meditation and goes to the higher states and then does massive damage to the humanity? And again, what you were saying is also confirming that many other teachers and guides have been saying, I think, over the years and centuries, that actually when you go on this path, and I think that's across at least all mystical schools I know, and I know a lot because I traveled a lot. So
yes, you did.
Any culture, and that's the underlying foundational principle that when you start going into this direction, whatever we call, spiritual evolution, and meditation is a big part of that, right? And pretty much in any school, it's created in such a way that you are going through the experience of heart opening. You are going through the experience of the unbearable compassion. You are going through the experience of unity as you're expanding your consciousness and going higher and higher, regardless which methodology or school you follow, if they are ancient, right? I mean, I'm not talking about New Age spirituality, because this, in my humble opinion, is not rooted in science enough and not, time tested. So it's an entirely
time tested is a beautiful expression.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're not we're talking here about traditional schools that have been around for many, many, many centuries, like Vedic culture, right? This is where transcendental meditation is based into. Like, I know Tibetan culture is similar. So there are Sufis, there are many actually around the world. It's just here specifically, we're talking about the transcendental meditation itself. And again, I just want to highlight it to make sure people who are listening to us and watching, because I feel it's a very important part, that everything that Candace has been describing today, all the benefits, she's talking specifically about transcendental meditation. And the reason why I'm saying it again here, because often what happens to people, they hear someone talking about something, they just hear the word meditation and they go, oh, I think I heard on Timeless Teachings podcast, there was this guest, Candace from Iowa, and she was talking about meditation. So I'm going to go and learn, right? So I'm just saying, guys, and girls, men and women. So when you look around and want to learn. So what we are discussing here, the very proven, scientifically measured effects specifically for the TM meditation. Now, there are many other meditations, and by no means we're not sort of discouraging or bringing down the benefits. It is just, we don't know. Maybe they are not, studied that much by scientists, so it's hard to say. And there is definitely like a spiritual benefit to doing this. It is just in the context of our conversation here. It's specifically TM, right? I just want to be very clear about that. And I think that the best way to learn, probably just go to the main website, which is, from what I remember, www.tm.org, right? That's the main website. And I think when, you just go there and you check on the countries, and there are TM centers all around the world, and you can just find it in your city. So I did my homework, you see?
You did. But I want to add one interesting thing here, and that is the administrative role that I have in the TM organization is with the women's wing of the TM organization.
Yes, please. That's an important part. Mm-hmm.
And we also have a website because so many women really prefer learning meditation from a woman teacher and in the context of a course with women. So for that reason, about 12 years ago, the founder of Transcendental Meditation, he appreciated that we should have a women's wing where that kind of experience is available. And it's interesting because I head up that organization in the United States, Canada, and Australia. And it's been a fascinating process for me to watch the significance of it that I didn't really expect. It wasn't my desire to head up a women's wing. It just happened, and I was asked to do it. And I am completely sold out to a woman's path, a woman's spiritual path. It is a different spiritual path. So anyway, any women listening today can also go to tm-women.org.
I love it.
Yeah, so we've got that. And then you can find a teacher, hopefully, we have women teachers almost everywhere who can teach your course if you so desire to have that kind of experience. So,
and that's beautiful. We will also add all those links, of course, on the description. So it's easy and they're clickable. So you guys just, check the description of the video if you're watching on the YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast, it's going to be directly a description in the podcast. So when you can access all those links. And I find, Candace, what you're saying, it's also a conversation you and I had when I was in Iowa, right? About women, and I'm a woman myself, you are a woman. And interesting, I learned my TM also from a woman, from Olga. So when I arrived in Iowa, Jim, who is a man, actually suggested that, I think it's better if you learn it from a woman. So here is a female teacher. And again, sometimes these conversations, by no means, we are not creating any segregation between men and women, right? Again, I just want to be very clear about that, because sometimes I'm hear even from women who go, oh, this pro-women movement, there's more segregation between men and women. That's not what it is about. We are not creating that. So all what we're saying here, that feminine journey into spirituality is different. And I personally also have this experience. So in my own search and studying with different teachers and masters and schools for many, many years now, I also realized that most of the techniques, which is, I think, a fact, they have been historically created by men and for men, just because the way how the society has been run, right? And that's, again, historically, we had lesser women who were able to just go on a spiritual journey. And so what is happening right now, I feel what we are seeing, that women, even from the scientific point of view, wired in a very different way. Our brain wired in a different way. Our physiology is different. So we look at things differently. Socially, we have very different roles. So, of course, our journey into spirituality is different in many ways. Like, let's say, leave your kids at home and go to the forest for 10 years. I mean, for a woman, it's very hard to do. And so, right? So I'm not saying, men do this still sometimes. And I know I'm not going to go into this conversation because I did have this with Tibetan monks just questioning from a female perspective the whole idea of that, but that's an entirely other conversation. So the point is that we want to honor each individual according to who they are the best. And that's why I feel right now there are more and more people who do women's work and they are women, and there are more people who do men's work and they are men. Right. So, and it makes sense because you can teach what you know, but you can teach what your experiences. And I feel that's also from what I know about you and your journey, that's also a big part of your mission. And that you kind of gracefully walked into this in your life. And the founder of the movement was very supportive of this. And I always believe we should believe founders, So the very first person who kind of initiated the whole teaching. And so maybe from that perspective, if I were to ask you to give message to women all over the world, right, of all nationalities and social backgrounds and circumstances. So if I would tell you now, Candace, the whole world is listening to you. All women are listening to you. What would you say?
I would say that the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves is self-sufficiency. And this is very interesting, because relationships are very important to women. And I'm not just talking about a partnership relationship in terms of, our life partner or whatever, a romantic kind of, whether it's children, our friends, our colleagues, our parents, or because we are, we could say, hardwired to be mothers. Whether we have children or not, this tendency and desire to connect and nourish is very powerful in us. In other words, even if we're not mothers to children, we're just naturally kind of mothers to the world. And that connection, and the connection on a very deep level of feeling, where we want to connect on the level of the heart. We want our connections to be significant. It's important to us. And therefore, we have a tendency to look outward in the area of making connections for our sense of fulfillment in life. We want to make those connections. We want to feel our heart open up and flow, because we know the glory and the bliss of love, of loving and of being loved, but even more loving. Because we're structured to give the first experience of love to human beings. When a mother gives birth, what's the greatest blessing that little child has in that moment? It's the love of that loving, unconditional love flowing onto it from its mother. So those dynamics, and we do our work in life, and we go about, and we got to pick up the dry cleaning, and we got to go pick up the groceries, and then we got to meet our lunch. It's not something we reflect on all the time, how important this connecting value is. But when we can connect with that deepest value of our own self, it's such a deeply spiritual place within ourself. And it's the kind of fullness, as I said before, that we're looking for in every other attempt to make a relationship and make a connection. But it's this self-referral connection that's going to give us this kind of self-sufficiency that will allow us to give without depleting ourselves. That's a big risk for all of us who just give too much. It allows us to give without major expectations for getting something back. And what happens when other people feel that love coming to them without any expectation for something to come back? It all comes back. Then the people want to give back and flow in that reciprocal value of love so automatically and so easily. So everyone ends up fulfilled. But what every single one of us wants, men and women, we want to be seen for who we are and accepted for that. Seen for who we are and accepted. Yes, be who you are. I accept you for everything you are. It's not that I want you to be a little more like this. That would make me happier. I accept you for who you are. And that comes from a very self-sufficient place where I'm so full in myself, I can accept everyone for who they are. I'm not expecting anything that you have to be like this to make me happy. You have to be like this. I want you to say this, then I'll be happy. So it is this reality of self-sufficiency that is the greatest gift any woman could cultivate in herself. Any woman could create for herself. It will be the ground upon which she will step into that motherly role, that nourishing power. She will step into her nourishing power, and she will move this world like nothing else can move this world. So it's an incredibly empowering thing, but it's empowering on the ground of nourishing power. And this is what this world needs more than anything. And this is what women can most profoundly give to this world.
Thank you so much, Candace. I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, for your wisdom, for the generosity of your heart. That has been just a phenomenal conversation. And I'm sure we will be having many more conversations and doing many more things together. This is just the very first step. And I'm just expressing a deep gratitude on behalf of everyone who will be watching it across all internet and social media channels. And yeah,
and I just want to say to you, you have a beautiful heart and you draw it out of everyone that you speak to. You have beautiful energy. You are nourishing power. And it's a gift to the world that you created your podcast so that beautiful nourishing power of yours can radiate out far, far and wide. So it's a joy to connect with you. And I think you and I have a lot of things that together we can do some beautiful things. And I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. That makes me feel also very, very vulnerable right now, which I love. So again, the other thing about women, right? Every time when someone appreciates you, especially publicly, you go like you take a deep breath and you go, yes, that's okay to be appreciated.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So thank you for saying that. And to all our listeners and people who are watching us right now, so thank you for being with us today. And once again, we will provide all the links and also contact details if you want to get in touch with Candace directly. And otherwise, just stay with us and we're going to be back with the next guest next time. So thank you for being here.
A gentle reminder that this is not a regular podcast, because here we have no rules and no scripted questions. All conversations are spontaneous, unfiltered, and deep with people from all over the world, regardless of their race, religion, nationality, language, or other circumstances. These people are teachers, experts, coaches, leaders, and influencers who are all simply ordinary human beings doing their thing. The intention of this podcast is to showcase the infinite variety of how human beings think and what they do to create happiness, fulfillment, realization, health, wealth, bliss, and overall a truly spectacular life. Did you enjoy the interview? Feel free to share this episode with friends, subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And remember, you are a spectacular human being.